There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
Welcome to a glorious post-game edition of the Program Guys podcast. I am Mark Hall, joined today by Matt Gann and producer Trevor. He's made some appearances here and there, and he's filling in for us tonight. We really appreciate you coming on, Trevor. We are here to recap a really wonderful 59-20 Oklahoma Sooners beatdown of the West Virginia Mountaineers, led by the offensive stylings of Dillon Gabriel and Drake Stoops. I think it was a real great get-right game for, really both sides of the ball, but honestly, the offense is what needed it the most. Opening thoughts, guys. What did you guys think? Let's start with Trevor.
Dillon Gabriel, he looked like he was focused. That was something that the past 3 games, it feels like he was kind of maybe not fired up. I don't know what the deal was, but today he was dialed in on almost everything, hitting those mid-range passes, which was what we were actually talking about. They need to focus in on more. And they're clearly opened up the running. So I think as a whole, Dillon Gabriel, he wanted this win. He wanted to prove everybody wrong. And I think he did that.
Mark, you said it right. This was the get-right game. This was the Oklahoma team that we saw earlier this year, really through the first 4 games, playing complementary football on both sides. And you could tell the defense was a lot more swarming and a lot more intense with Danny Stutsman coming back. Again, we can't emphasize enough how much he means to the team and how much he elevates the team around him, the players around him. So good to see the defense get back to what it normally does, even after getting punched in the face and West Virginia going down the field and scoring 7 and the OU crowd thinking, oh, here we go again. We're about to get into another shootout, close game that we've been in the last 2 weeks. Glad they responded the way they did. This is definitely a game that OU needed to come out and smash on West Virginia.
And they certainly did that. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. I know that we've kind of touched on the defense, and we'll get into the Danny side of things here shortly. But on the offensive side of the ball, Trevor hit on it well. The Dillon Gabriel factor. I thought there were a couple of throws early that were just a little off, right? But it did feel like we got a piece of the same Dillon who was controlling the offense in Dallas against Texas. Just the way he's commanding things and the way he seems more confident as a playmaker and as a ball thrower when he's running the football well. That was the thing around him tonight is, holy crap, man, the dude is, hold on, let me snag it.
Ridiculous
3 touchdowns
stat
on the
line.
ground.
Ridiculous
3 touchdowns on the ground to go along with his 5 through the air, and he just looked like he felt like he owned the game. And that's where I want to start, is with the Dillon Gabriel of it all. Trevor sort of hit on it. Matt, what do you think about Dillon's performance tonight?
Yeah, this was a good bounce back performance from him. Went 23 of 36, over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and again, 3 on the ground. So 8 total touchdowns. That is something that you want to see from your quarterback. Again, I think the play calling was the best tonight, serving up both the intermediate and deep passes, getting the ball down to your best deep threat in Nick Anderson, and really spreading across to maybe our best receiver who's played the last 3 weeks is Drake Stoops. And he's been incredible, especially in the intermediary, just finding the zone, finding his spot, and DG, and the timing is there. So really good performance with DG. I think the play calling is probably the best we've seen in the last 3 weeks, and obviously putting up 600 yards is not easy to do with the 4th-ranked West Virginia defense coming into tonight's game.
Back-to-back career games out of Drake Stoops, first with Oklahoma State last week, and then obviously this game this week. Trevor, do you put it more to, and it's both, right? It's always both. But do you attribute the success tonight more to Jeff Lebby taking the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, or players executing to a degree beyond where they were the last couple of weeks? Do you think that it's a play calling change, or it's a player getting it kind of change?
I honestly, I think it's more of play calling, because one thing I noticed was that there was areas that execution was faulty on. And you look at things near the goal line, the play calling was there. It actually, you actually had people running the right routes, but then you had a situation towards, I think it was into the fourth quarter, where Dillon Gabriel was cussing out Gavin Freeman for running the wrong route. And that right there should have been there. So I think it was play calling definitely in I think the first drive they started the immediate passing game. And that right there's been their bread and butter almost all season when it's actually running. And that right there obviously opened up the running game, which, Sawchuk had glimpses of greatness just because you had everything open up. You had the West Virginia D spread out enough and being honest enough to where you had to be able to, or had the holes to be able to do that. So it was definitely probably more play calling than anything else.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I also, you mentioned Sawchuk. He looked like the guy we expected at the beginning of the season. Truthfully, if you just switch out Nick Anderson for Andrell Anthony, this looked more like the offense I thought we'd be running all season long. Like Austin Stogner gets heavily involved, 4 for 69 and a touchdown, and all 4 were impactful catches. It was a throwback Stogner performance, and Sawchuk looking like the guy we expected him to be gives me a lot of optimism moving forward running the football. And this is on a day when Tyler Guyton doesn't play, doesn't suit up, isn't active. I think a lot to be hopeful for running the ball there too. Here's a couple of thoughts though. Only 1 carry for Tawi Walker, no touches for Marcus Major, no touches for Javonte Barnes. Dalen Smothers gets in the game and gets a couple. At least we got a lead, dog. But man, it's just funky back there. It is just funky back there. Matt, any thoughts on the running back game today? I mean, Gavin, obviously, but then just what it portends moving forward.
I think this is what OU fans have wanted to figure out, who is going to emerge as the top guy. And I think this is maybe Gavin's coming out performance. I mean, again, he had a good game last week, but again, the touches between the backfield was more of a backfield by committee. I think this is where Gavin has really proven that he can be the workhorse kind of guy. I mean, went 22 carries for 134. I mean, that's averaging 6 per clip. I mean, I think the guy deserves to get the workload he has continuing through the rest of the year. So I think that's what Sooner fans wanted. It's good to see. We limited turnovers. We were good on money downs. We talked about this in the preview pod, went 8 of 14 and 2 for 2 on 4th down. That's what keeps the offense going, keeps your defense be able to rest. But again, when we get high level execution, that's why we put up 60 plus points tonight when we have in the past 2 weeks.
Trevor?
Yeah, I think honestly it comes back to kind of what Dillon Gabriel is comfortable with. Now this is kind of back on the passing game, but I was going through the numbers again, and at halftime he had targeted, I think it was Drake Stoops 8 times, Nick Anderson, I think it was, or sorry, backwards. I had Nick Anderson targeted, I think 8 times. Drake was just under that, but had more receiving yards. And so you look at the end of total of receptions, you have Drake at 10, Nick Anderson at 4, Austin Stogner at 4. Clearly, Drake was the major production, 164 yards. I mean, that right there on its own is so productive. I don't think you can have the success of the running game without having Drake Stoops involved like he was. So, I mean, it's a balanced offense, and I think you saw it at the best it possibly could be today.
Yeah, and something that I tweeted something, and it's an ongoing theme that we've had throughout the year. We all love Drake Stoops, but if he's your number 1 guy, that's a bad thing about your receiving core. Well, today it wasn't, and last week it kind of wasn't. I mean, for all the problems, Drake wasn't one of them, and maybe you just let him cook a little bit. We found a nice role for Jalil Farouk in, he only got 2 catches for 30 yards, but he's also got 2 carries for 29. So you put that together, that's 4 touches for 60 yards. That's making plays when you have the ball. Nick Anderson, like you mentioned, goes 4 for 119. He's making plays even though he's not scoring the touchdowns this week. And Drake Stoops is just Wes Welker out there. He's able to make plays and get open even when he shouldn't, when he has no business doing so. I liked a lot of what I saw out of the offense today, and I think that it just churned in a way we haven't seen it churn. I think we all saw one drive that we were like, no, that's garbage. That's doo-doo, where we just got weird with the play calling. But for the most part, we ran our shit and we ran it well. And I really like seeing an offense that is just able to do that, especially how active we were getting Dillon going on the ground. Any final thoughts on the offense, guys, before we move to the defense? Trevor.
This isn't directly on the offense, but I noticed that Brent was a little bit more aggressive in his clock management. So you look at towards the end of the first half, I think there's about 2 minutes left. He's immediately calling a timeout when we make that stop there. I would have liked to see us be a little bit more methodical with that drive, even though it didn't turn into anything. Because that right there, we left too much time on. They end up coming down and scoring a touchdown at the end of the half. But as a whole, I think I like the aggressiveness there. And I think there was some execution, or sorry, not execution, but I would like to see Brent Venables more involved with the offense, because again, it kept on panning over to him when offense is on the field, he's over there talking to defense. And I think we've talked about that before, and him being more of a head coach. And I think if he's able to, bridge that gap a little bit better, that'd be great. I think we would be humming even further.
I agree. I think if you're going to be the CEO kind of head coach, you need to be a CEO. And Brent's trying to do that and also be the defensive head, coordinator. And he's capable, but it's hard to fill both hats. It's hard to wear both hats. Matt,
Absolutely.
Last thoughts on the offense, on the Jeff Levy led, maybe he's actually good at this thing, offense.
Yeah, I said it before. This was his best play calling game probably since Texas. So it's good to see bounce back. It's good to see what the offensive potential can be when all things are running on all 4 cylinders. So hopefully we can continue that to the end of the year.
Totally agree. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball, where we saw at the linebacker positions, it's something that we discussed, who's going to start. Kip Lewis gets the start next to Danny Stutsman, not Jaren Kanak. Kanak comes in later in the game, makes plays. He had that one tackle for loss on the quarterback where he just tracks him down after breaking the line of scrimmage. Jaren Kanak has better instincts on the other side of the line of scrimmage than anyone else on the team. He just knows how to get that guy and track the ball and bring him down. I digress. I think a very good defensive showing with some holes. What do you guys think?
The goal line stand said a lot for me. And I think that's actually been I think we would have had more this year. It wasn't for some costly penalties. Besides, obviously, the Texas one, obviously a big one. This one right here, I think, was definitely up there as well. Because they were still in the game. Like, if they would have scored there, that right there has been towards the end of the half, it would have been a lot of momentum for them. And it probably would have been a different ballgame if that right there did not actually end up getting stopped. Even a field goal probably would have left enough momentum there for them to keep on going. So great job of the defense there. And I wrote something down. I was like, JK came in, and I'm like, Kip is clearly better, and that's why he's starting. And then from what we've seen so far this year, it's kind of been that way. But obviously, I think it was the screen pass that he comes in and just blows it up. And clearly the disruptor there. And so I think he had something to prove. Maybe him not getting a start actually made him better. And maybe that's what we need. We need him to come off the bench, be more of an energy guy, and keep things rolling. So I kind of like him in that spot.
Bright future for Jaren Kanak, whether he starts the last 2 games or not, right? Like we're all high on Jaren Kanak. It's just about using your guys the best ways you can. And Kip Lewis has looked awesome. Matt Gann, opening thoughts on the defense?
I mentioned it. It was the first drive. Felt like it was deja vu from the last 2 weeks. I mean, they go down and run a couple run plays, couple open passes down the field. They score first. It's up 7-0. And you think this is going to be another shootout where we get into the 30s and 40s for both teams and end up who's going to score the most points. But keeping Garrett Green to 10 rushes for 24, I know the quarterback rushing is a little bit different when they get sacked and all that. But if you would have told me that we would have held this team to under 20 points or at under 20 points, right, within that range and a little under 300 yards, with only 150 that being passing, I would take that all day. And I think this team proved that after they got punched in the mouth, especially with Danny, Billy Bowman just flying all over the ball, getting that pass breakup, letting Reggie get the pick. This team was like the team we've seen in the very beginning, 8 tackles for loss, getting after the quarterback. Again, I think it's sometimes not enough pressure, too many open running lanes, but again, I think there's a bend, don't break mentality. Trevor, like you mentioned, even giving up that many yards, getting down the goal line and not giving up anything. That's what this team's about. Glad we could get back to what we've seen previously because they needed this game, and I'm glad to have Danny Stutsman back. He is legitimately the best player that we have.
Yeah, I called it a get right game, and it really was on both sides of the ball. But the defense feels like having Danny back and just sort of being able to congeal and gel around him was a major step forward. One step back that I want to mention is the absence of Gentry Williams, I think was pretty noticeable. Kanai Walker made a play or two, but I know he got beat on that first touchdown, and I saw him on the losing end of a couple of plays. Hopefully Gentry can come back. We saw Kendall Dolby playing that outside receiver, outside corner position at the end. If I was seeing it right, maybe I was seeing it wrong. So something to monitor there. Big game out of Robert Spears Jennings, big game out of Billy Bowman. I mean, vintage Billy Bowman game. Coming up to just destroy people and then making that break on the ball, like you mentioned, that allowed Reggie to catch the interception. Holy cow, man. That's Billy Bowman operating on all cylinders. If he's right and Danny Stutsman is right, all you need is for PJ, who I didn't see at all tonight, to come on and be the monster he's going to be. And this thing is cooking. It's cooking.
Mark, what do you think? I had a question for you. What about the cheetah position? Not a lot of Deshaun McCullough on the field. Is he injured? I didn't see any word of it, but we had a lot of Kendall Doby and somebody else playing that position. So I think that's something to monitor as well, especially with Gentry out and McCullough potentially for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's interesting. Deshaun McCullough, man, I'm glad that you mentioned it. I'm not sure we saw him. He doesn't have a tackle listed at all. And he was shown as a starter on one of the graphics during the game. So something must have been miscommunicated or something. I didn't even see it before the game that he wouldn't play. So I don't know what's going on there, but Kendall Dolby has played that position well. He has. He's not a big guy, but he takes on the challenge every single time to come down and fill the spot in the run and doesn't allow his size to be a disadvantage to him. You know, it's not ideal that Deshaun McCullough doesn't play, but Kendall Dolby has proven to be an adequate player there. And between him and Peyton Bowen was on the field a little bit today. And gosh, those might be the two guys left if Deshaun's not playing. You have a couple of talented players that can make things work.
Yeah, we're
Trevor.
getting really thin over there. That's what's worrying me. Yeah, I mean, we're honestly in defense. Anytime someone goes down, I think it was Vickers was down today. I'm sweating bullets because I mean, granted, we have pretty good depth. We do have competitive depth. Not to be the dead horse, but we do. But I mean, we still are needing to have these bodies, healthy to be able to continue this. I'm looking at the stats here, and it's pretty interesting. Bakari Vickers had 1 tackle, but then it was Billy Bowman had 7. Robert Spears Jennings had 7. And then the next, obviously the leader was going to be Danny with 8. But that right there says a lot because Billy's making plays across the field, like just where he's having to move around to be able to make those, whereas Danny's already inside the box. Right. So there's honestly probably more impressive to me how many tackles he actually is getting, and 4 of them are solo.
He's a bat out of hell.
Seriously. Also, do you guys see the Jacoby Johnson pick at the end of the game? That was like off the thing. I went back and looked for on YouTube.
No, I didn't even see it.
So he had a toe tap, like around the 10-yard line. You have to look it up. You'll have to look it up.
I'm looking it up right now, actually, and I'm sure I won't find it. It doesn't matter. I'm so high on Jacoby Johnson, And I just think he's built for it. He's got the exact measurables that you want. And that's, look, a guy coming in and making a play, even though, hey, end of the game, doesn't matter. I'm not redshirting. So let me go make a play, get a pick. That's awesome. Big stuff for Jacoby Johnson. The one thing, guys, it wasn't a bad defensive line game by any means. We got pressure plenty, but I'm still waiting for, I guess, like a guy in a way. And I don't say that like pundity, right? Not like just trying to have a take, but this week, Brent Venables said R. Mason Thomas was the best defensive end on the team. And we haven't seen him get to the quarterback too much. PJ doesn't play today. Rondell Bothroyd and Ethan Downs are very effective football players, but they're not the most effective pass rushers. We've got other guys that are supposed to be doing that. Trace Ford is supposed to be coming in and doing that. And I just find that while the line as a unit is getting the job done, we're having to send pressure to actually bring the quarterback down. And that's something that I'd like to, see changed a little bit. I'd like to see a little bit more effective play up front. Matt, what do you think?
For sure. I mean, you always want to see more pressure on the quarterback. The team did in total have 6 pass breakups. And I think what we talked about before, the money down on both sides of the ball, OU's offense goes 8 for 14, but we hold West Virginia's offense to 4 of 16 from third down. And that's really where the defense makes its money, right? Because you get our offense back on the field, our offense is humming, it's in rhythm, and that's why we were able to score so many points. So even if we did give up some yards, some run plays, at the end of the day, getting those major stops on those money downs, getting the ball back to our offense, the defense did exactly what they needed to do, even if they did generate enough pressure. 0 sacks on the night. You never want to see that. But if you're getting stops on third down, I'll take that all day.
Yeah, and just real fast, I mean, Garrett Green goes 10 for 27 for 154 yards. He's got 2 touchdowns, but he throws that beautiful pick to Reggie. And if you can hold any quarterback to 10 of 27 passing, that's a good day. It's a good day. I'm picking nits a little bit, but it's something that we've discussed along the defensive line. And just I'll speak for myself. I expected PJ to be more involved in the pass rush rotation at this point in the season. So something to keep an eye on as we sort of round out the year there. Trevor, any final thoughts on the defense?
I mean, just kind of back on getting pressure. I mean, I know we're not getting sacks, and obviously we would like to see that. But I think one thing that we've seen across the board with all the quarterbacks that we faced, I would say they've been smart because we are getting pressure. I mean, you see how many hurries we're actually getting. The incompletions are, half of those are because we're getting pressure. He's literally just throwing it to the ground, just trying to get it away. So I would say that right there to me would count as not a TFL, but I mean, it's close enough to where it's actually causing a problem. So I think we are getting enough pressure, and then obviously it's helping out. We're having good enough, coverage in the back just because, where no one's getting open. So I think as a whole, we did the right stuff today. I think the biggest thing that I could take away from this one was on the first drive, it was arm tackling and people slipping through fingers. And then everything I've seen outside of that, when they were able to score touchdowns, it was chunk plays. And those right there, again, were arm tackles. So if we are able to kind of solidify that, that's very fixable. I think we're going to be in really good shape. So in BV, we trust.
Yeah, you notice a couple times they would be like right at the line to gain. And later in the game, right after that first drive, people are smart and they're grabbing them, they're pulling them back. They're getting coached every moment on the sidelines. Matt, last thoughts on the defense?
No last thoughts on the defense. Just want to give credit where credit is due. Mark, you called it on last week's pod. You were the closest on the score prediction at 45-17. Obviously, the score ended up being 59-20, but you called it that this was going to be OU's bounce back blowout game. That's what they needed. You called it. So I got to give credit where credit is due, my friend.
I love hearing that. It makes me just really, really happy. On that note, if you're still listening, you should like and subscribe. I'm right often enough, and Matt sometimes gives me props for it. So like and subscribe here. Go follow us on Twitter at Program Guyz. Go follow us on Instagram at Program Guyz. We got a Facebook account, Program Guyz Podcast. We are all over the place, so you should go follow. I should have said it at the beginning of the podcast. I was just too excited to get into this thing. We're going to wrap it up. Go ahead with the PGP MVPs of the game. Trevor, please start us off, baby.
It's too easy. We're going to go with Danny Stutsman, though. You guys have to work hard after this one.
It's a good
because, I mean, yeah, clearly the defense does not function nearly as well with him on the sidelines. He was by far the best player on the field, offense and defense. Even with DG rolling, he looked amazing. He was involved in every single play. Yeah, hats off to him and his comeback game.
Absolutely. Matt, go ahead.
I mean, gotta go the other side of the ball. Dillon Gabriel, total of 18 touchdowns, 5 through the air, three on the
18.
ground. Sorry, 8 total, 5 through the air, 3 on the ground. Let's also mention DG tonight entered the top 12 in total passing touchdowns thrown. Top 10
okay, go
all
ahead.
time.
No, there you go.
And then something in yards, like top 15 in
top
yards.
10 in he's top 10 in passing yardage. I don't know about the touchdown one, but I know
touchdown
he's
is top 15, something like that. So obviously DG entering it in really historic fashion and really put a capital mark on tonight's performance. So gotta go Dillon Gabriel.
It's going to be incredible to look at his career when it's all done and see how much of it was in the Crimson and Cream and how much he's more our guy actually than UCF's guy, especially if he can finish this year out right. Well, you guys took a couple of great MVPs. I'm going to go with the boy, Drake Stoops. 10 catches, 164 yards, 3 of Dillon's 5 touchdowns through the air, just open all night long. I swear he probably should have had one or two more good catches. And early on, there were some throws that Dillon kind of spaced out on him there. But Drake just doing everything right, being the leader the team needs in the receiving core, and proving us wrong in saying that Drake Stoops cannot be your number one receiver. So give me Drake Stoops, my PGP MVP, and that's going to wrap us up for the game. Your Oklahoma Sooners bring home a dub in Norman, 59-20. Turns out we're still good at football, at least to some degree. Catch us next week when your Sooners go to Provo, Utah, and we'll have all of the coverage of that moving forward. This week on the Program Guyz channel, follow us, like us, subscribe at Program Guyz on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, here, all of the stuff. I think I hit everything that I need to hit, and there's only one thing left to do. Trevor, take us out.
Keep pushing it, baby.
3, 2, 1.
There's not one guy, one person in the history of this program that's bigger than the program.
What's better than this? Guys being